What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel, and today I have an updated Numeron deck profile for you guys today. And I know what you guys are thinking, you're thinking, wait a minute, why is it dark out? Why is it dark outside? Well, at the time that I'm recording this video, it is Tuesday, June 21st, and it's 8 at night right now. And I'm actually going to be heading somewhere tomorrow. Possibly? I don't know. So by the time you guys see this, it will be Wednesday, and I'll probably have already been to the place that I'm supposed to be. Hopefully things work out. If not, it is. I guess it is. I guess it is what it is. But yeah. With that being said, I wanted this to truly be an anti-meta strat where if you guys remember the last version of this deck that I did, it was main decking cards such as the Phantasmes, the Artifact Size, the Cyframe package, as well as cards that you didn't think would be viable in this deck. Now, and then of course the side deck was a bit of a mishmash of bullshit, basically. Now, with this version, it's truly an anti-meta strategy where it utilizes cards such as the Harpy's Feather Duster, the Numeron Storms, the Twin Twisters, and even also cards such as Zing Zang Hu, which I've used in so many different decks that I've profiled on the channel this past, over the years. Guys, I'm telling you, Zing Zang Hu is going to be will indeed be an OP deck if you play Numerons. I'm telling you. Trust me, you won't regret it. But the side deck is basically using cards that were originally in the main, and I ended up putting it in the side. This deck is truly an anti-meta strategy, and I'll showcase to you guys, I'll give you guys a couple of examples of how the deck can truly work in this format. So hopefully you guys enjoy this deck profile. If you guys do enjoy and you guys want to see more deck profiles in the future, make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. And be sure to follow me on my Twitter and my Instagram, as I always post the deck lists on Instagram. The links will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. Let's get straight into it. First up, we have the 3 copies of the Numeron Wall and the 3 Planet Pathfinder. Numeron Wall is basically one of your big hand traps of the whole deck. So what this card does, it says, if you control no cards except Numeron Wall, you can send this card from your hand or field to the grave, activate 1 Numeron Network directly from your hand or deck. You can only use this effect once per turn. When you take battle damage, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, end the battle phase after the damage step. So this not only gives you, not only does this give you access to Numeron Network if you don't have it in your hand, but it also basically But it also lets you special summon it from your hand in defense, and it ends the battle phase right then and there. So even if you did have another monster on board, I'll say the Nightmare Phoenix. Let's just say that. Even if you had the Nightmare Phoenix on board, you can still special summon the Numeron Wall, and your opponent will not have another battle phase that same turn, which is pretty cool. And then of course the Planet Pathfinder is mainly here for the Mystic Mine. In fact, I think what I'm gonna do, you know what, I was going to switch something out, but I realized that I have a 3rd Mystic Mine in the side. So what I was planning on doing was I was going to take out one of the Pathfinders, and I was going to replace it with something else. but I realized that I actually don't really need to. So I do apologize for that. But again, Numeron Wall gives you access to Numeron Network. Planet Pathfinder gives you access to both the network and the Mystic Mine, depending on which route you want to take. If you want to deal a shitload of damage, then you go for Numeron Network. But if you want to try and stall for time and basically just prevent your opponent from playing any form of Yu-Gi-Oh, then definitely go after the Mystic Mine, which is pretty cool. We are also running one copy of Lava Golem, and you guys are probably wondering why. This is actually a very old Go format card, but it was also used in Edison format, if I remember correctly, and in multiple variants of Subterra decks, in different variants of Mystic Mine burn decks, which were utilizing cards like Wave Motion Cannon, Self-Destruct Button was another one. Ring of Destruction as well. Lava Golem is a very powerful card. So the effect reads: cannot be normal summoned or said. Must first be special summoned from your hand to your opponent's field by triggering 2 monsters they control. You cannot normal summon the turn. You cannot normal summon or set the turn. You special summon this card. Once per turn during your standby phase, take 1,000 damage. So what's interesting is that it says that you take 1,000 damage. Yeah, by you it means your opponent. They take the damage, not you. And so with this, it puts them on an 8-turn clock, meaning they only have 8 turns to potentially to find and out 2 Lava Golem. Otherwise, they lose automatically. The only out that they can have is by using Lava Golem as either Xyz material or link material to go into cards such as Appaloosa, such as the Avermax, whatever they want to summon. Lava Golem will act as an additional body to summon said monster, which is a downside. But with all the hand traps that is in this deck, yeah, it's gonna be quite the challenge for your opponent to say the very least. We are also running 2 copies of Kumongus, the Sticky String Kaiju. This is basically a kaiju. It's actually a really cool one. So the effect reads: you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in attack position by attributing 1 monster they control. If your opponent controls a kaiju, you can special summon this card from your hand in attack position. You can only control 1 kaiju. When your opponent normal or special summons a monster, you can remove 2 kaiju counters from anywhere on the field. Until the end of the next turn, that monster or monsters cannot attack, and it has its effects negated. So it acts. So if you were running, if this deck was running, kaiju, the kaiju spell or traps, like what are they? Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, Kaiju Files, and even also Kaiju Capture Mission. Basically, sorry guys, my mom's dog is barking at my uncle. I don't know why he does, but it is what it is. But anyway, I think it's Kaiju Files. Yeah, is it Kaiju Files? It's Kaiju Files and actually it's all 3. It's all 3. So if this deck was maining at least 1 or 2 copies of all 3 of these kaiju spell and traps, basically this card, Kumongus, would have acted as an imperm, or actually rather, it would act as a fiendish chain, where it can't attack and it cannot use any of its effects, which would have been nice, but unfortunately this deck is not running any of the Kaiju spell traps, which is unfortunate, but it's still a pretty good card, especially if you pair it off. Especially if you pair it off with either Solemn Warning or Solemn Strike. Basically, your opponent would have no monsters, which is actually a very hilarious combo that I was testing, especially with Lava Golem. It was actually pretty funny, I have to admit. I will eventually show it off in a test at some point. But for now, unfortunately, is not the case. But I promise you, it will happen sooner rather than later. But with that being said, moving on into the hand traps, other than the Lava Golem, other than the Numeron Wall, the Lava Golem, and the Kumongous, we got the 2 Ash Blossom, the 2 Ghost Ogre, the 2 Ghost Bell, and the 2 Effect Veiler. Ash Blossom, we all know, focuses on the deck. Ghost Ogre focuses on the field. Ghost Bell focuses on the graveyard, and then Effect Veiler just stops any one monster in their tracks to round up the monster. 17 monsters, 15 spells, 8 traps in the main. Moving on into the spells for the 1-ofs, we have the 1 called by the grave, just in case if your opponent activates an Ash Blossom on your Planet Pathfinder, you can then chain their Ash with a call by, and their Ash is instantly negated, and you can then go into either the Mystic Mine or the Numeron Network, which is pretty cool. We got the Harpy's Feather Duster, obviously back row removal. Nothing else to say about that, to be honest. And then of course we have a couple of new cards in the main. We have first up we have Numeron Storm. This is basically a Harpy's Feather Duster, so to speak. It's basically Harpy's Feather Duster on steroids. So the effect reads: if you control a Numeronious monster, destroy as many spells and traps your opponent controls as possible, minimum 1, and if you do, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. So if your opponent has if your opponent has 5 cards in their back row, that's 5,000 damage, but it can only work if you have Chaos number 1,000 Numeronious on board. But you're asking yourself, how is that possible? How are you able to summon Numeronious? That is where the next card comes into play. Numeron Chaos Ritual. The effect of this card reads: if a face of Chaos number 1 Numeron Chaos Gate Shunya you control was destroyed by a monster effect this turn, you can target 1 of your Numeron Network and 4 of your number exceeds monsters that are banished or in your graveyard. Special summon Numeronious from the extra deck that becomes 10,000 attack and 1,000 defense. And if you do, attach all 5 targets to it as material. And you can only normal summon or special summon once for the rest of the turn. So in a scenario where in a scenario where you do use Numeron Network as the material for Numeronious, you can then normal summon the Planet Pathfinder, trigger its effect, and get out another Numeron Network to further ensure that your Numeronious is further protected, which is pretty cool to say the very least. And what do I mean by that? Numeron Network has an additional effect that reads, Numeron exceeds monsters you control can activate the effects without detaching materials. Technically speaking, Numeronious counts as a Numeron monster. So in that scenario, if I remember correctly, you don't have to detach, which is pretty cool. But what's even more interesting is that when Numeronious is destroyed, by an opponent's card effect while it had material, you can then use Numeronius to summon Chaos Imaginary number 1000 Numeronius Numeronia, which the card itself just says fuck you. That's all it does. That's all it says. It just says fuck you written all over it, which is nutty. We then are running 2 copies of Numeron Calling, which is basically the standard. I know I've seen decks that run 3, which doesn't really make sense. Which really doesn't make sense because if you run 3, you're not gonna have any room in the extra deck for more monsters. Let's see, 3 copies of the 4 numbers. That's what 3, 6, 9, 12. You would only have 3 slots left, which you're probably going to be using one of them, obviously for Shunya. But what about the other 2 slots? You gotta have at least one Link monster, such as possibly Appaloosa or even the Avermax for all we know. So that's why only running 2 is better, especially if you pair it off with a card like say the Infinite Track Fortress Megaclops or the Cypher Omega, because with Omega, which both of these monsters are in the site, which I'll explain later on, Omega has an effect where it can just bounce cards from the bench pile back into the graveyard, which will give you more fodder for your Numeron cards, which is pretty cool. Then we are running 3 copies of Memories of Hope. This card is nutty. This card is big. So if you guys remember the spell Xyz Treasure from the Zexal anime, you will know that the card said that you would be able to draw 1 card for every Xyz monster on board. But with Memories of Hope, it's a little bit different because it says draw cards equal to the number Xyz monsters with different names you control, meaning only your Xyz monsters. So in a scenario where you have all 4 numbers on board, that's basically 4 cards. It basically comes as a +3 -1 because of the fact that you used Memories of Hope, and technically speaking, even though you did draw 4 cards, you're basically plussing 3 out of it, which it's not too bad, especially if you end up drawing out cards, such as your Golem, your Kaijus, your Ash Blossoms, your Veilers and whatnot. That's a pretty hefty hand, to say the very least. Rounding out the spells, we got the 2 Numeron Network, the 2 Mystic Mine, and then the 2 Twin Twister as for even more back row removal to round out the spells. For the trap cards, we got the 1 Waken the Dragon for a particular card in this deck that basically is an anti-meta card. You guys won't believe what that card is, trust me. We've got the 2 Solemn Warning and the 1 Solemn Strike. We got the 2 Infinite Impermanence and the 2 Zing Zang Hu. Now Zing Zang Hu is maybe a really old Floodgate card, but the card is so good. Activate by selecting 2 set spell or traps on the field. The selected cards cannot be activated. So with this, in a scenario where your opponent has cards like such as like Skill Drain and let's say Goes in Match or a Tikenbu or whatever, you can then flip up Zing Zang Hu during the end phase, target any of your opponent's 2 back row. GG. It's essentially GG, because if you ended up selecting the Skill Drain, it's essentially GG. Your opponent will have no outs to it. They won't have any way to activate a Twin Twister or anything like that, because of the fact that you already have the Ghost Ogres, you already have your Ash Blossoms and whatnot. These cards in particular can just essentially stop the back row in their tracks, which is pretty cool. Now, as far as the strike and the warnings go, what I meant by by your opponent not having a board. If your opponent has, let's say three monsters on board, and you want to remove them like really quickly, you go Humongous into one of your opponent's monsters, flip up the Solemn Warning, the Kaiju goes into your graveyard. You then target the other two with the Lava Golem, activate the second warning. Lava Golem goes into your graveyard, and your opponent has no monsters on board, and you can then instantly just attack for game by going into the Planet Pathfinder, trigger its effect, activate, get out the Numeron Network, play the Numeron Network, trigger its effect, get Numeron Calling into your graveyard, summon out the 4 numbers, and you can just essentially deal 4,000 damage to your opponent, link them off into a card like, say, the Crusadia Avermax, and your opponent will just essentially cannot play any form of Yu-Gi-Oh at all, especially if you set call by. If you set the one call by, the Twin Twister, the Imperm, and the Zing Zing Hu, if you have them in your hand off of Memories of Hope, that right there is basically GG no re. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Moving on into the extra deck, obviously I had already talked about it. We got the 2 Numeronius cards. We got Numeronius, and of course Numeronius Numeronia. Numeronia has an effect where it says that it can be special summoned by the effect of Numeronius, and it gains 100,000 attack if summoned that way, which is insane. But it's during your opponent's turn only, and you get to apply one of the 2 effects that it may have upon it being summoned. Monsters your opponent controls must attack this card if able. At the end of your opponent's turn, if this card did not battle, you win the duel. And then it has another effect where it reads, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can detach one material from this card, negate the attack, and you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. So this essentially just ensures that you have a pretty good amount of life points, to a point where your opponent won't be able to beat you at all, and you essentially just win, which is GG no re. We are running 2 copies of all of the Numeron numbers. We got the 2 copies of Kadvari, 2 Akam, 2 Devi, 2 Trini, and then of course the 2 Shunya, because of the fact that we got the Numeron Chaos Ritual. And not only that, you can use one Sunya to basically wipe out the board, and then use the other one for fodder for the Numeron Chaos Ritual to help you go into Numeronius Numeronia. We are also running the 1 Crusadia Avermax and the 1 Nightmare Phoenix, mainly for even more back row removal, and the Avermax is just there as a house, which is awesome. And then for the Waking the Dragon target, you're wondering, what is that target? It is known as number 89, Diablosis the Mind Hacker. This was originally a YCS promo for quite some time before it got printed in I think, was it Bowser Legend Armageddon? Or was it Brothers Legend? It was one of the other. It was either in Bowser Legend Armageddon or in Brothers of Legend. It was one or the other. But if you guys have never seen this card before and don't know what it does, it is a rank 7 Dark Psychic Exceeds with 2000 attack, 1200 defense, and it requires 2 level 7 monsters. So it is generic, but you can use this card as a Waking the Dragon target, which is really cool. The effect reads, once per turn, you can detach a material from this card, look at your opponent's extra deck, and banish one monster from it face down. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle, you can target one card in your opponent's grave, banish it face down. If a card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down while you control this card, except during the damage tab, you can banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck face down equal to their face down banished cards. You can only use this effect once per turn. So with this works This is basically Ghost Reaper on steroids. So if you do not know Ghost Reaper, Ghost Reaper's effect reads: if your opponent controls more monsters than you do as a quick effect, you can discard this card, reveal one card in your extra deck, then look at your opponent's extra deck. Also banish all cards in their extra deck with the same name as the revealed card. You can only use this effect once per turn. So with this, it would have to work in a mirror match, so to speak. With Diablosis, it's basically that, but you get to just banish one card at random completely. And the best part is that if a card got banished, you get to banish a card from the top of your opponent's deck. During the battle phase, when it destroys a monster, the amount of cards that your opponent has to banish from the top of their deck doubles each battle phase until they cannot banish any more cards. In which case, that's what makes this card an anti-meta card. Meaning you force your opponent to deck out, and they essentially have no way around it. Especially if you pair this card off with pretty much your entire back row. If you pair it off with your Mystic Mine, your Twin Twister, your Solemn Warning, your Solemn Strike, your Imperms, your Call Buys, and your Zing Zang Hoos, if you pair them all off with Diablosis, your opponent will have no outs to it, and they essentially just lose right off the bat, which is a pretty good strategy to say the very least. But moving on into the side deck, the side deck are basically cards that were originally in the main of the last build, and I decided to mix it up a little bit. So first up, we have the second. So for the side deck, we have the second Lava Golem. We have the two Phantasme, just in case if we're going up against, just in case if you go up against decks that are Link heavy base decks, such as like Cyberse, Salmon Grays, even though Salads are like way past their prime. Sky Striker would be another one. Then definitely side in the Phantasme in replacement with let's say the Chaos Ritual and the Numeron Storm. If you're not able to summon the Numeronius, side them out. Side them out for the other two extra deck monsters that are in this deck, which I'll get to here in a second. We got the two Artifact Lancia and the two Scythe. Scythe is basically a Buster Luck where your opponent cannot summon from the extra deck. Lancia has an effect where if you activate Memories of Hope and your opponent tries to or actually rather if if I were to activate a card, or if my opponent were to activate a card, and one of us ashes, and the other uses Call By, and then ends up using Twin Twister as a random example, and pops the Lancia, basically Lancia triggers, and no card can be banished for the rest of the turn. In which case, Call By would be completely useless right then and there, which is pretty cool. And then of course we got the one Sign Friendly Lord Omega, the one Infinite Track Fortress Mega Collapse, which is a pretty cool card. I have to admit. The effect reads: so the card requires 3 Xyz monsters, which is pretty easy to do, obviously. The effect reads: unaffected by other monsters' effects except those of Xyz monsters. Cannot be destroyed by battle except with an Xyz monster. You can target one Xyz monster in your grave and one card your opponent controls. Special summon that monster from your grave, and if you do, attach that opponent's card to it as material, and for the rest of the turn, any damage your opponent takes is cut in half. So if you summon out Sunya and you target one of your opponent's cards, you're pretty much just off to the races there. But what's even more interesting is is that if your opponent activates Solemn Warning on your Numeron Chaos Gate Shunya, you can then activate. You can then on the resolution of your opponent's Solemn Warning or whatever, you can then activate Numeron Chaos Ritual, activate the Numeron Chaos Ritual, target the Numeron network, all 4 of the Numeron gates, summon Numeronius, and you're off to the races there, which is pretty cool. Just off of the Mega Cops alone, which is insane. For these spells, we have the 3rd Mystic Mind and the 3rd Twin Twister, and for the traps, we got the 2nd Waken the Dragon. Obviously, for the Side-Friendly Lord Omega, we got the 3rd Imperm, the 3rd Zing Zing Hu, and the 3rd Solemn Strike. So this is probably by far one of the more better versions of this deck. And what's even more crazy is that with cards such as the Zing Zing Hus, the Missing Minds, the Hand Traps, the Golem, the Kaijus, this is truly an anti-meta strategy that might take to locals, maybe a YCS if I was lucky, but still, this is a pretty insane deck. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this deck profile. If you guys did and you guys want to see more in the future, make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and follow me on my social media. Links will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.